A young woman tried to escape hidden from her parents who mistreated her. When she was about to flee, her body trembled upon hearing a beggar on the street shout her name. Amelia adjusted her worn coat around her body, her eyes scanning the dark hallway to make sure her parents were still asleep. Each step she took was calculated, avoiding stepping too hard on the floorboards that creaked under the slightest weight. She knew any sound could awaken her parents' wrath. She knew their anger too well. The marks on her arms were proof of that, always hidden under long sleeves. They mistreated her so much that Amelia cried every day. "Will anyone ever treat me with love?" she wondered, questioning if she was worthy of affection since her own parents treated her so poorly. Reaching the kitchen, Amelia grabbed the bowl of soup she had saved for her escape. She had hidden it at the back of the fridge so her parents wouldn't suspect. They usually locked all the good food in a compartment in the pantry, to which she didn't have a key. Amelia's stomach ached with hunger, but she had to be smart. "I need to save this food for when I'm far away," she thought, calculating when she would eat it. After grabbing the food and placing it in her bag, Amelia walked to the front door. However, as she carefully turned the key, her parents' bed creaked. "Amelia!" her father shouted, making her heart race. Sometimes he would shout in his sleep, and she hoped this was one of those times, so she remained silent, knowing that if her father discovered she was trying to escape, she would get beaten again. After a wait that seemed to last hours, though it had only been a few minutes, Amelia opened the door and closed it as quietly as she could behind her. Now she needed to be very quick. Her parents didn't allow her to study, so she dreamed of learning to read, even though she was already 20 years old. She wanted to work and have money to buy food, dreaming that she would never be hungry. "I will succeed, I just need to be fast," she thought. However, upon reaching the street in front of her house, she saw a ragged man. He was a beggar, leaning against the cold wall of the alley. He was thin, his tangled hair framing a face that, despite the dirt, retained traces of striking beauty. The man raised his eyes to Amelia, surprised that she noticed him. Everyone must ignore him, poor thing, she thought. Amelia hesitated for a moment, her escape plan pausing in the face of the human suffering right before her. Despite her parents' mistreatment, she received a bowl of food each day. This man had nothing, she concluded. He must be hungrier than she was. With her heart aching with compassion, she approached him, the bowl of food still in her hands. "I don't know your name, but it looks like you might need this more than I do," she said softly, extending the bowl to the man. The faint light from the street lamp briefly illuminated the gratitude that crossed his eyes. "John," he said, accepting the bowl with trembling hands. "My name is John. You must be Amelia," he said, leaving her in shock. "How do you know my name?" she asked, suspicious. The man studied her face for a moment before responding, "I heard someone shout your name as I passed by." He looked at the bowl in his hands. "Why are you doing this for me?" His voice was hoarse, loaded with the habitual distrust of someone who had little to expect from the world. Amelia looked around, ensuring the night still covered them with its veil of obscurity and silence. "Because I know what it's like to be hungry," she confessed quietly, a confession that felt both like a liberation and a new weight. "I can't run away and leave you here alone knowing you need help." John observed her with a new assessment, the corner of his mouth curving into the hint of a smile. "And you think you can save the world?" The question held no mockery, only a deep curiosity. "Maybe I can't save the world," Amelia responded, feeling a firmness grow inside her. "But I can try to make a difference where it matters." She pointed to the shack at the end of the street, a place she knew could offer temporary refuge since her parents never went there. "You can stay there, at least for tonight. It's cold, and I would feel terrible if you froze out here during the night." John nodded, following her as she led him to the shack. He entered the small space, placing the bowl on an improvised surface. "You have a good heart, girl. Too good for this cruel world." Amelia smiled sadly, feeling the irony of her situation. "Just trying to be the person my parents never were," she said, turning to leave, the urge to flee still pulsing in her veins. "Stay safe, John. If you need anything else, I'll try to help when I can." Leaving the shack, Amelia felt in her heart that she shouldn't leave the man there starving. "He needs the bowl of food more than I do," she thought, deciding to stay a little longer at her parents' house to help John. After he is well fed and stronger, I will run away, she promised herself as she returned home with the same care she had taken to leave. At dawn the next day, while her parents were still asleep, Amelia sneaked into the kitchen to prepare breakfast. Her parents didn't allow her to eat more than a little of what she prepared, so she decided to cook a bit more, telling herself she was just trying to please her parents that morning. Each movement was meticulously calculated to avoid suspicion. "If I do this every day, they won't even notice the difference," she murmured as she stirred the pot of porridge. The plan was simple but risky. If her parents found out, the consequences would be severe. As she placed the extra bowl of porridge in a container, she heard her mother's footsteps coming down the stairs. Her heart raced, but Amelia kept her composure. "Good morning, Mother. I thought I'd make a more substantial breakfast for you today," she said, forcing a smile. Her mother looked at her with veiled suspicion. "Food is not cheap, and you eat too much," she said, and with a single gesture slapped Amelia across the face. "This is to teach you not to waste. You will not eat more than one bowl today," she finished. Poor Amelia could eat no more than 3 spoonfuls before they took her bowl away, so she knew she couldn't let her mother notice she had cooked more than necessary next time. As soon as she had the chance, Amelia grabbed the hidden container and slipped out the back door, feeling the weight of responsibility with each step. Her face still stung from her mother's slap, but she pressed on, knowing John needed her, even if she would be in trouble if her parents found out. Reaching the shack, she found John still asleep, huddled in a corner for warmth. "John, wake up. I brought something for you to eat," she whispered, touching his shoulder gently. He woke slowly, looking at her with eyes reflecting a mix of gratitude and surprise. "You really came back," he said, his voice hoarse with disbelief. "Have you eaten?" Amelia sat next to him, the steaming bowl of porridge between them. "Yes, I ate a little. Don't worry about me. I can't promise much, but I'll try to help as long as I can," she explained, her determination reinforced by the look of relief on his face. John, unlike what she had imagined, offered her the spoon. "Eat a bit more, you look hungry," he said. Though Amelia shook her head, he extended the bowl. "Eat a bit more, share it with me," he insisted, waiting until Amelia had finished half the bowl of porridge before finally eating. When he did, eating slowly, he seemed to gain a bit more life. "You're different from the people who see me on the street, Amelia. Most of them just ignore me, but you're different. You have a heart that this cruel world hasn't broken." Amelia smiled sadly. "Maybe, but I still have a lot to do." She knew that this small help wasn't enough to change John's situation completely, but it was a start, a sign that there was still hope and kindness in the world. Returning home, she already planned how to get more food without raising suspicion, determined not to let her parents' cruelty define who she was or the impact she could have on the world around her. As she did daily, Amelia began to take care of the endless house chores while her parents enjoyed themselves. By the end of the afternoon, she felt exhausted, but upon entering her room, her body gained life at the sight of a covered plate on a silver tray. There was a dinner so exquisite that Amelia wondered if she was dreaming. There were all the things she didn't usually eat: fruits, vegetables, meats, and even a small dessert cup. "Mother must have regretted slapping me over the porridge," she thought as she ate. She felt her health regenerate the next morning after the nutritious meal. However, when she went out into the street, she noticed the cold was becoming overwhelming. As she went to the shack to bring John's porridge, her breath became visible in the cold morning air. This time, Amelia had been more careful not to let anyone notice the amount of food she had made. She found John trembling with cold. She looked at him, seeing him shivering under the thin blankets that barely retained any warmth. The advancing winter brought with it a cold that seeped into the bones, especially in the poorly insulated shack. "You need more than this to stay warm," she murmured, feeling powerless but knowing she had to act. That afternoon, while her parents were out, Amelia rummaged through the attic for clothes and blankets that were not in use. Each item she placed in the bag increased her nervousness, knowing that any missing item could raise suspicion. "They can't notice these are missing," Amelia thought as she chose less visible pieces that her parents hadn't used in years. With the heavy bag on her shoulders, Amelia ran to the shack under the cover of night, each step a calculated risk. She opened the door slowly, revealing John huddled in the corner. "I brought something for you," she whispered, placing the bag on the floor with anxious silence. John looked inside the bag, his eyes lighting up at the sight of the contents. "Amelia, this is too much. How did you get it?" he asked, his voice laden with gratitude and concern. She sat next to him, helping him wrap himself in a thick blanket. "Don't worry about that. Just use them to stay warm, okay?" Amelia said, forcing a smile while her heart raced with the worry of being discovered. John held her hand, his cold fingers touching hers. "You do so much for me, Amelia. Why bother?" he asked, the intensity of his gaze deepening the question. Amelia looked at her own hands intertwined with John's and found an answer that felt true to her core. "Because I would want someone to do the same for me if I were in your place," she confessed, feeling a mix of fear and determination. "I will never forget this, Amelia." "Never," said John, squeezing her hand. She nodded, feeling a warmth against the cold that didn't come from the clothes or blankets, but from the bond forming between them, a bond of gratitude and mutual care. Returning home after leaving the clothes with John, Amelia felt a growing tension. Her mind spun with worries about what would happen if her parents discovered what she had done. Each step toward the house heightened her fear. The moon was covered by dark clouds, and the wind blew colder, as if foretelling trouble. As soon as Amelia quietly entered through the back door, she heard voices in the living room. Her parents had returned earlier than expected. "It's too quiet here. Where's that girl?" Her mother's voice cut through the air like a knife. Amelia froze, her heart beating so hard she could barely breathe. Quickly she hid the empty bag under a piece of furniture in the laundry room and hurried to the kitchen, trying to appear as natural as possible. "I'm here, Mother. Just finishing cleaning the kitchen," Amelia called, trying to control the tremor in her voice. Her mother entered the room looking at her with veiled suspicion. "You were outside, weren't you?" she accused, her eyes narrowing. Amelia felt a chill down her spine. "No, Mother, I've been here the whole time," she lied, hoping her expression didn't reveal the panic she felt inside. "Don't lie to me, girl. Your father said he saw footprints in the grass outside, footprints leading to the shack." Her mother's tone was pure threat. "You know what happens to lying women, don't you?" Amelia swallowed hard, her stomach twisting with the anticipation of what was to come. "Sorry, Mother, I just went to check if we left any tools out with the forecast of rain," she improvised quickly. Her parents exchanged glances, clearly not convinced. "Let's just hope that's all it was," said her father, finally entering the kitchen. "But we're watching you, Amelia. Any slip-up and there will be consequences." Her mother finished, but when Amelia entered her room, the door closed behind her. Her mother had locked it so she couldn't escape. With her room locked and the key taken by her mother, Amelia felt more like a prisoner in her own home than ever. Watching the snow fall gently outside, her worry for John intensified. The piercing cold of winter grew stronger every minute, and Amelia knew each second could be crucial for John. The announced snowstorm only worsened the situation, making her visits to the shack not just risky but almost suicidal given the harsh weather and her parents' vigilance. That night, however, the urgency was greater. Amelia looked out the window and measured the height she would have to jump to get down from her room. It was a risky jump, but she knew John wouldn't survive if she didn't go to him. "My God, please don't let me get hurt. John needs me," she prayed, mustering the courage and simply jumped out the window without thinking too much about what she was doing. Amelia didn't know if it was because of the prayer or how she landed, but she was unscathed when her feet touched the ground. Reaching the shack, she found John pale and delirious, coughing in a way that sounded like a lament of pain. He could barely keep his eyes open as he struggled to breathe. "Amelia, I don't think I'm going to last much longer," he murmured between coughs, each word a struggle. Desperation took over Amelia. "Don't say that, John. I brought medicine and a warm blanket. You're going to get better," she said, trying to infuse some hope into her voice, even though the fear in her heart told her the situation was grave. John held her hand, a weak smile on his lips. "You are an angel, Amelia. Thank you for everything, for not leaving me alone here." His voice was a whisper, his eyes closing slowly as if accepting an inevitable fate. Amelia felt the tears burn in her eyes as she helped John take the medicine. "You need to fight, John. I'm here with you," she insisted, though the fear of losing him there, alone and forgotten by the world, was overwhelming. "Stay with me," she pleaded, making a silent prayer for John's salvation. She spent almost an hour with John in the shack, knowing her delay could get her into trouble, but she waited until the medicine took effect and John's color returned to normal. When their eyes met, Amelia noticed how handsome he was, and John seemed to notice because he smiled at her. "You are my salvation, Amelia," he declared. However, Amelia knew that John would be at risk staying in the shack through the night, so she decided to return home and try to hide him in the attic to protect him from the cold. As she reached home, her mother was waiting for her with one of the empty medicine packages Amelia had carelessly left outside her hiding spot. "What is this, Amelia?" her mother demanded, her voice rising with each syllable. "And don't come up with excuses this time." Amelia, caught off guard and trembling not just from the cold but from fear, swallowed hard. I was feeling unwell, Mother. I thought that—" "Lies!" Her mother cut her off, her face inches from Amelia's, eyes blazing with fury. "Your father saw you going to the street when he thought we were in our room. Who were you meeting, Amelia? What are you hiding?" Amelia's heart raced. She knew any wrong answer could mean not only severe punishment for her but also mortal danger for John, who would be left in the cold if they locked her up again without a way to escape. "There's no one, Mother, I swear," she spoke quickly, trying to control the tremor in her voice. "We'll see about that," her mother replied, dragging Amelia by the arm towards the shack. Each of Amelia's steps was heavy, each heartbeat a gong of terror as she imagined what they would find there and what it would mean for both her and John. Amelia's heart pounded so hard she feared her mother would hear it as they entered the shack, but John wasn't there. Seeing the shack completely empty, Amelia's heart plunged into an abyss of fear and worry. Where could he have gone, she thought, scanning the small space with her eyes for any clue John might have left behind. Her mother, interpreting Amelia's panic as guilt, quickened her pace back to the house, pulling her by the arm. "We didn't find anyone today, but this isn't over," her mother threatened, locking Amelia's door again when they returned. The night was restless, with Amelia unable to sleep, worried about John's safety and anguished by her own helplessness. What if he got worse and went out looking for help? What if he died? She thought, panicking. At dawn, the young woman began to feel chills and a sharp pain in her chest, symptoms of a fever rapidly escalating. "I can't get sick now," she murmured to herself, mustering her last strength to get up. Wrapping herself in a thick coat, Amelia waited for a chance to escape again. With her mother occupied watching TV in her room, she grabbed a pot of hot soup and more hidden medicine and ran to the shack, the cold wind biting her face, aggravating her fever. "John, are you here?" she called softly as she opened the shack's door. Immense relief flooded her as she saw him lying under the blankets, still weak but alive. "Amelia, you look terrible. What are you doing here in this state?" John asked, worried seeing her so pale and trembling. She tried to smile, handing him the soup and medicine. "I had to come." "You need to eat something," said Amelia, trying to keep her voice steady. John accepted the soup, his eyes not leaving her face, marked by illness and effort. Amelia sat beside him, trying to hide the tremors running through her body. "Just rest, John. We both need to," she tried to reassure him, but her voice faltered, betrayed by growing weakness. While trying to return home, darkness and cold accumulated around Amelia, and she could barely put one foot in front of the other. The world began to spin dangerously, and she fell into the snow, her consciousness slipping away. John, worried about Amelia, risked leaving the shack to see if she had made it home. Finding her unconscious in the snow, anguish washed over him. With effort, he lifted her in his arms, carrying her back to the shack. There, he used the few resources he had to warm her, rubbing her hands and covering her with all the blankets he could find. The night passed with John caring for Amelia, whispering words of comfort even though she couldn't hear them. "You saved my life so many times, Amelia. Now it's my turn to take care of you," he promised silently, watching her weak breath as the storm raged outside. However, as he looked at Amelia, he noticed the bruises on her body. In shock, John realized that the young woman was being mistreated. He hadn't imagined this was happening. John wanted to protect her from the world, to care for her, and to ward off any harm that could afflict her. As he cared for Amelia, John made his decision. The next morning, Amelia woke slowly, feeling the warmth of the blankets around her frail body. She recalled John's comforting presence, who had stayed by her side, vigilant all night, caring for her with heartbreaking tenderness. Her eyes adjusted to the dim light filtering into the shack, and she soon noticed a carefully folded piece of paper beside her makeshift bed. With trembling hands, she picked it up, unfolding it to read the words John had left for her. "My dear Amelia," the letter began, "you gave me something I thought I had lost long ago. Hope and a reason to fight. I can't let you continue to suffer alone. I won't let them hurt you. I'm leaving to resolve everything, to give us a chance at a better life, far from the cruelty you've known. I promise I will come back for you, and together we will find peace. Prepare to leave with me to a place where you will be well cared for and loved. With all my love, John." Tears welled in Amelia's eyes as she read John's heartfelt words. She held the letter to her chest, feeling a mixture of relief and fear. "How can I deserve so much?" she thought, a wave of gratitude and worry flooding her. He had left to protect her, to fight for them, and now she felt more determined than ever to endure, to wait for him. However, the reality of her situation soon imposed itself. Fearing reprisals, and that her escape could endanger not only herself but John when he returned, Amelia knew she needed to be cautious. She sighed with relief, seeing that her parents hadn't noticed her absence. The door to her room was locked the same way it had been when she left. They probably didn't even bother to look for her. However, that same afternoon, while she tried to resume her usual chores to avoid suspicion, her mother found the letter. "What is this?" she screamed, brandishing the letter with a tempestuous fury. "Who is John? And what does he want with you?" Amelia froze, terror paralyzing her as her mother continued, her voice growing louder. "You think you can deceive us, bringing strangers into our lives, planning to run away with him? No, Mother, please. You don't understand. John is a homeless man. I helped him," Amelia tried to explain, but her words were quickly cut off by her mother's severe hand. "A beggar," her mother sneered. "Do you think I don't understand? You were giving our food to him," she said, looking at Amelia's father, who had just entered the room, alerted by the commotion. "We don't want to be involved with people like him. We're leaving this city," she decided, looking at her daughter with anger. The parents were poor, but they acted as if they had a fortune. However, none of their luxuries extended to Amelia, who lived in rags and could barely eat. "Let's go. Before this man comes back to take our daughter, we can go to your parents' country house until he gives up." Amelia felt the world collapse around her. "No, we can't leave. Please, I need to wait for him," she pleaded. But her pleas were in vain. Her parents were already packing their things, determined to cut any possibility of Amelia reuniting with John. If they left, he would never find her again. As the house filled with the chaos of preparations for the imminent departure, Amelia sat helpless, holding John's letter tightly in her hands. "Come back soon, please," she whispered to the paper, a silent prayer for John to find her before it was too late. Amid the chaos of the imminent departure, Amelia acted. While her mother hastily packed her things, Amelia devised a desperate plan. She needed a hiding place, somewhere she could wait for John, away from her parents' vigilant and punitive eyes. In a moment of distraction, Amelia slipped out, her heart pounding with each stealthy step. "Where do you think you're going?" Her father's voice cut through the silence, sharper than a blade. Amelia, caught in the act while trying to slip out the back door, turned to face him, her face a mask of determination. "I'm not going with you," she declared, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and resolve. "I can't leave my life or John behind." Her father advanced, fury etched in every line of his face. "You don't have a choice, Amelia. We're doing this for your own good." He tried to grab her, but she backed away, taking a deep breath to calm the rising panic. Amelia ran back inside the house, looking for a place to hide until she could find a way to escape. She slipped into the attic, a rarely visited place, and crouched behind some dusty boxes. Not long after, her parents found her. Her mother, with John's letter in her hands, looked at her with a bitter expression of victory. "This ends now," she said, tearing the letter into pieces before throwing the fragments into the fireplace. Amelia watched, devastated, as John's words turned to ashes. Without a word, they forcibly took her out of the house, pushing her into the car. The journey to her grandparents' old country house was silent and tense. Amelia knew that if she entered that place, she would never leave. She knew the setup of the old house, almost falling apart, but it would be impossible to escape from there. Each kilometer was like a nail being driven into her future with John. Upon arrival, they isolated her in a small room on the second floor, with a barred window that overlooked the house's entrance, too high for her to jump, and the bars too close together for her to squeeze through. There, Amelia sat by the window, looking at the distant horizon. "I lost John. Now he'll never find me, and I'll never escape," she whispered to the wind, a tear rolling down her face. She knew the battle to maintain her freedom and her future with John had come to an end. There were no more chances for her to escape. Imprisoned in the room with the barred window, Amelia despaired at finding a way out. She was determined to get back to John, knowing he would return to the place where he last saw her. Amelia picked up a hairpin from the floor and tried to manipulate the lock on the door. Her fingers worked urgently, but with each failed attempt, the fear of never seeing John again grew. "I need to get out of here," she whispered to herself, her heavy breathing echoing in the silent room. After countless attempts, the hairpin finally gave way and broke. Frustration overwhelmed Amelia, and she backed away, her back against the cold wall. "This can't be happening," she murmured, the reality of her situation sinking in like a heavy curtain of despair. The cabin became a temporary refuge for Amelia, a place where anguish and fear could be contained by the narrow walls and the isolation it offered. Huddled in a corner with her knees pulled to her chest, Amelia listened to the wind seeping through the cracks in the old wood, each gust a cruel reminder of her desperate situation. She feared staying in that isolated part of the house in case her parents forgot to feed her or give her water. She wondered how they could hate her so much. The voices of her parents, though physically distant, echoed in her mind, discussing the punishment they would apply when they found her. "She needs to learn once and for all that she can't defy our authority," her mother's severe voice echoed, filled with coldness and determination. "This time she'll feel the strength of our hand," her father agreed, his voice a low growl of imminent threat. "How much do you think she's worth?" her mother asked, causing tears to stream down Amelia's cheeks. "My mother wants to sell me?" she wondered, unable to believe what she was hearing. But the conversation continued outside. "I don't know. We'll have to ask and find out," her father replied, making Amelia's heart despair. She couldn't stay there. She knew she was in trouble. Amelia curled up even more, trying to push away the fearful thoughts threatening to consume her. She knew that every minute in that cabin was a minute gained against the fate her parents planned for her, but also a minute lost far from John. "He'll be looking for me. I need to find a way to get back to him," she whispered to herself, trying to instill some hope in her tightened heart. The solitude and isolation of the cabin, though oppressive, offered her a space to think and plan. "I need to find a way to let John know where I am, to tell him about the danger," Amelia thought, her mind working frantically for a solution. The barred window, though an obstacle, became a focal point of her observations and thoughts, a fragile connection to the outside world and perhaps to John. As night fell, the cold intensified, and Amelia crawled to the small broken fireplace in the cabin. She gathered some pieces of wood she found inside the cabin and tried to light a fire, seeking some relief from the cold that bit at her bones. The flickering flames brought a tenuous comfort, but enough to warm her body and give her a glimmer of comfort. "God, please help me. Make John find me," she prayed, watching the shadows dance on the cabin walls. The uncertainty of her fate weighed on her like a heavy, suffocating blanket. But deep down, a spark of determination still burned, the determination to survive, to reunite with John, and to escape her parents' oppressive grip. Amelia eventually fell asleep, her face illuminated by the intermittent glow of the fire, clinging to dreams of freedom and the somber plan of someday seeing John again. Tomorrow, she thought, perhaps tomorrow she could find an opportunity to get out when they brought her food. With dawn still cloaked in darkness, Amelia tossed and turned on the cold cabin floor. A distant sound of a car approaching broke the night's silence. Her heart raced at the possibility of someone coming to help her. She tried to bang on the windows but feared her parents would come to her room and punish her for the gesture. Amelia stopped banging, deciding to see who the driver was so her parents wouldn't take her out of the room either, where she would never be able to ask for help. She peered through the barred window, trying to discern who was arriving. Seeing an unfamiliar car park and a well-dressed man get out, Amelia almost didn't recognize him. But then he looked towards the house and she recognized him. It was John, but not as she remembered him. He was transformed, dressed elegantly, and his posture exuded confidence. Amelia pressed her face against the bars, tears of relief mixing with renewed hope. How did he get those clothes in that car? What's happening? As John approached the cabin door, Amelia's parents came out to confront him. Amelia could see everything through the window, but they couldn't see her due to the height. "Who are you? What do you want here?" Amelia's father growled, clearly surprised and suspicious of the visitor. "I've come for Amelia. I'm John," he declared firmly, his gaze fixed on the two, "and I'm here to take her." Amelia could barely hear them. They were on the first floor of the old house, and the walls were too thick for her to be sure of the words spoken. Amelia's mother intervened, her voice dripping with cynicism. "You don't look like a beggar to me," she remarked, eyeing him. "Do you think you can just come here and take our daughter?" John remained calm, even in the face of accusations. "Amelia deserves a better life than the one you offer, full of fear and violence. I have the means to take care of her, to give her the life she deserves." Amelia knew her parents would exchange glances, probably thinking of selling her to the highest bidder. None of them cared about her. "And if we refuse," challenged her father. "Then I will have to take legal action to ensure her safety," John replied, his voice as cold as the morning air, "including reporting to the police everything I know about how you treat Amelia." Amelia, still peeking through the window, felt a mix of admiration and fear for what John might face for her. She heard him mention having resources, realizing he had carefully planned each step before coming to get her. Her mother, realizing they were in a disadvantaged position, changed tactics. "Amelia went to live with her aunt in a very distant place. She won't return, so you can't take her. But if you want her to come back, you must reimburse us for everything we've done for her. We want compensation," her mother said. John nodded. "Are you trying to sell your daughter? Where is Amelia? I don't believe she has left." He looked over her parents' shoulders but didn't see Amelia at the window. "No, we are not selling her, just compensating for what we spent on her. I can see you are not the right person to help us, so get out of my house. Amelia is very far away, you will never see her again," her mother said, slamming the door in John's face. Desperation washed over Amelia as she watched John's car begin to move away from the old house. Her mother's words echoed in her mind, a cruel sentence of eternal isolation. With her heart pounding, she banged on the window bars with all her might, shouting John's name, though she knew it was nearly impossible for him to hear her because of the distance and the strong wind swaying the trees outside. "John, John, please don't go," she screamed, her voice tearing at her throat as tears streamed down her face. Every second the car moved further away, a sharper pang of hopelessness struck her. In the car, John felt a growing unease. Something wasn't right. As he was about to accelerate, a faint sound, almost swallowed by the wind, reached his ears. He braked abruptly, his intuition screaming for attention. John's heart raced as he got out of the car, running back towards the house. Amelia continued banging on the window, her body trembling not only from the cold but from the fear of losing him forever. Suddenly, John's silhouette appeared in the morning fog. "Amelia!" he shouted back, locating her at the barred window. "John, help me!" Amelia cried, the words barely escaping between sobs. John, with determination burning in his eyes, approached the door and began pounding hard against the wood, demanding that Amelia's parents release her. The confrontation that followed was tense and charged with emotions. "You have no right to imprison her like this. Amelia deserves to be free, and I'll do whatever it takes to ensure that," John declared firmly, while Amelia's parents tried to argue, swinging between fury and the fear of the legal consequences John could impose. "Do you think we'll let you take her? Amelia will never go with you. I'll call the police. You're trespassing on our property," Amelia's mother argued, pointing her finger at John's face, who was undeterred by the gesture. Meanwhile, Amelia wondered how to get downstairs, feeling useless for not being able to get out. The argument quickly escalated, and amid the chaos, someone called the police. When the officers arrived, the scene they encountered was enough to take immediate action. Amelia's parents were detained, and as Amelia was freed, John ran to her, concerned. "Are you hurt? Tell me they didn't hurt you, Amelia," he asked, worried. "I'm fine now," she replied as her parents were taken away. At the police station, while giving her statement, Amelia chose not to press further charges against her parents, showing a compassion that even surprised the officers. "I just want to move on with my life, away from the hatred and suffering they caused me," she explained, her voice firm but filled with emotion. John was by her side, offering the support she so needed. "We're going to start a new life together, Amelia. a life where you will be free to be who you really are. You will have everything you want," he promised, holding her hand tenderly. Amelia approached, the decision clear in her eyes. She only wanted peace in her life, to live as a normal woman, study, work, and have a family. For her, the pain and hurt had to end, so she decided not to press charges against her parents. However, not even Amelia's kindness was enough for the police, as they found her locked up in an unhealthy situation. Thus, Amelia's parents were imprisoned for everything they had done. Upon leaving the police station, Amelia was full of questions for John, but he took her to a huge mansion without giving her any explanation. As soon as Amelia entered the house, she felt like a princess inside a grand castle. It was so luxurious that she was speechless as she followed John into the house. Amelia felt as if she had entered a completely different world from hers. The luxury of the place starkly contrasted with the simplicity and hardship she had faced until then. John led her through hallways adorned with art and furniture that looked like museum pieces. "John, this is incredible. But why did you never tell me about all this? Whose house is this? How did you get that car and all this?" Amelia asked, her curiosity mixed with a hint of apprehension. She feared that what John hadn't told her might make her lose the feelings she had begun to have for him. Amelia hoped John had a good explanation. John sighed, stopping in front of one of the large windows offering a stunning view of the illuminated gardens. "I needed to know that you saw me beyond my money, Amelia. My life, despite being full of comfort, was marked by loneliness and betrayals. People always expected something from me, never interested in who I really am. They only cared about my money, what I could provide, and when I least expected it, they deceived me and tried to scam me. This always happened to me, until there came a moment when I started to think that money was a curse in my life, only bringing me sadness and bad people. So I decided I didn't want this anymore. I didn't want this life anymore. I donated a large part of my fortune to those in need and, in a fit of rage, decided that the best path for me was to live with nothing. At least I would have the chance to find someone I could trust because I would have nothing to offer." He paused, looking deeply at Amelia. "However, when I made my decision, I didn't imagine people would ignore me the same way if I didn't have money, Amelia. I couldn't return home anymore. I had taken all the steps to live on the streets for a while, to know what it was like to have people to trust, but no one listened to me. In fact, everyone ignored me until you came along. I don't know what got into me. I was passing by your house, and when I heard your name, it sounded like the name of a kind person, so I hoped you were different from the other people I had met." Amelia listened attentively, holding his hand. "I don't understand. Why would you suffer that way? You almost died when you got sick," she argued, making John turn to her again. "Yes, but in my mind I had already been sick and lonely long before that. I preferred to live there with you than to have all this luxury without love. But when I discovered how your parents treated you, I didn't hesitate to use everything I had to help you. I knew I could trust you, but I was afraid to tell you the truth, and right after you would leave me," John interrupted, his eyes meeting hers with fervent intensity. "I didn't imagine what you were going through at home. I thought you were just a simple person. I no longer cared about luxury or wealth, but I saw that something was wrong with your behavior, the fear that began to appear in your eyes when you had to go home, but I wasn't sure of my suspicion. I thought it could just be overprotective parents. However, I was wrong. When I discovered what they were doing to you, I wanted to protect you from the world. I realized that money was good when you could give everything to the one you love. I want to give everything to you, Amelia. You showed me that there are still genuine people in the world. Your kindness gave me hope again." She felt John's words warm her heart. "And I found someone who fought for me, who truly cared. That means everything to me, John." John continued, revealing more about his past. "After so many disappointments, I decided to live simply. I wanted to get rid of the wealth that only brought me pain. But when you came into my life, I realized I could use what was left to do something good, to really make a difference." Amelia smiled, touched by John's sincerity. "And you did, at least for me. But what now? What will we do?" "I want to start over, Amelia, this time with you by my side. I want to make you as happy as you deserve, to make you smile every day, and to show you that the world can be good if you have the right person by your side. What do you want, my Amelia?" Amelia, emotional, hugged John. "I've always dreamed of studying, working, and maybe one day having a family that truly loves each other, without fear or reservations. Then let's do this together. Let's turn each of these dreams into reality," John promised, sealing his words with a kiss. Now, with truths revealed and paths aligned, Amelia felt ready to start this new phase of her life. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, Amelia and John's lives flourished under the warmth of a love that healed and strengthened. She began to study as she had always dreamed. John was her companion in every moment, encouraging her at every step. Together they planned and finally celebrated a simple but meaningful wedding for them. And to think it all started with an act of kindness on a dark street, Amelia reflected as she and John walked through their garden after the ceremony. "You changed my life, John. You gave me hope when I had nowhere else to go." Now Amelia had a well-nourished and strong body, wore refined clothes, and what she liked most, had someone who loved her. John, holding her hand, tenderly smiled. "You gave me something worth fighting for, Amelia, a reason to believe in good again, and now together we can offer hope to others." Driven by this shared mission, Amelia and John founded a charity dedicated to helping those in vulnerable situations like John once was. The project grew rapidly, fueled by the couple's fervent commitment and John's generosity, who found true vocation in philanthropic work. "Let's call it Light for Tomorrow," Amelia suggested during one of their planning meetings, "because everyone deserves a chance at a new beginning, no matter how dark their past has been." "It's perfect," John agreed, his expression full of admiration for his wife. "You are the light of my tomorrow, Amelia." As time passed, the institution helped transform many lives, and the positive impact reverberated throughout the community. Amelia often found herself on the front lines, working directly with the underprivileged, a living reminder that change was possible. 7 years later, on a sunny afternoon, Amelia watched some children playing in the institution's yard. She felt a small hand slide into hers. It was her eldest son, looking at her with eyes full of curiosity and admiration. "Mom, have you always been so brave?" Amelia knelt to be at eye level with her son, smiling. "I learned to be brave, dear. I learned that sometimes you need to be strong not just for yourself, but for others too." And as her family grew, Amelia never forgot the lessons of the past. Her parents remained in prison, a grim reminder of the hardships she had overcome. They never had access to John's and Amelia's money, a decision that, although difficult, maintained the integrity and security of the new life she had built. Looking at John, who was playing with their children, Amelia felt a deep gratitude. Together they had built something extraordinary, not just a family based on love and mutual respect, but also a place to help others that extended far beyond the walls of their home. "We're making a difference, John," she said with a smile as he approached, wrapping her in his arms. "Yes, we are," he replied, kissing her gently, "and we will continue to, always together." And so, surrounded by love for each other, Amelia and John looked to the future with hope and determination, ready to face any challenge that came their way, knowing that together they could turn any adversity into opportunity. If you enjoyed Amelia and John's story, we invite you to like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to continue bringing exciting stories almost every day. Don't miss the next surprising narrative that's about to appear on your screen. We are immensely grateful to have you here with us. Now you can click on the links appearing on the screen right now. We have a special selection just for you, full of valuable stories and guaranteed entertainment. Until then,